Rod Reed, Electrosensitivity Support Charity for Electoral Hypersensitives. I talk daily to people who are made ill by electromagnetic fields and communication radio frequencies. And what is almost worse for them is the isolation and the mockery that they receive as psychotic crap, as one professor called it last year. And listening to Michael Clark of the HPA constantly on the media saying there is no evidence that what you are suffering has this cause. We think there is lots of evidence. When I have personally had a go at Michael over this, as I tend to, and as my sufferers want me to, he says to me, well, there's no scientifically proven evidence. And I say, well, it would be something if you said that on it. But he doesn't. He says there's no evidence. Do you think it would be a good idea, in the light of the evidence that is known, clinical and otherwise, that the government takes steps to disallow Wi-Fi being installed in schools where there are young people?
Okay, fine.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Wells, freelance writer and electrosensitive. My question follows on from this lady's, I suppose. In a way, it seems a bit of a chicken and egg situation. We're not all electrosensitives, although we are all exposed pretty much to the same amount of radiation. So I just wondered, in your opinion, how much of it is about people who are already immune compromised developing electrosensitivity, or how much is it being exposed to electrosensitivity causes people to become immune compromised?
Okay, and the last one, then I'm going to take another last bunch of questions, but then we've got to get out of here, right?
My question is similar to one of the things actually I was going to ask. Since more than half of the schools in the UK have Wi-Fi, what would you expect to see effects on children being, and what advice would you give to government?
Easy.
Okay. As I can remember, then maybe moving backwards. The difficulty with the Wi-Fi in the schools is that this is the most vulnerable population, this is the highest risk population, and that's an experiment that should not be conducted. Now, we have just completed some work in a community called Rancho Santa Fe in California. And next to this school, it's not a Wi-Fi in the school, but next to the school there's a base station with 8 or 9 antennas. And we've done readings and we found information carrying radio waves all around the school playground. And the antenna concentration is as recent as 5 or 6 years ago. And this school, Rancho Santa Fe, is the most wealthy community in America. It's movie stars and professional athletes. That school is the #1 elementary school for 20 years in California. And in 2003, it dropped to #7, and in 2005, it dropped to #9. Now, if you're in the business of looking for canaries in the coal mine, you have them there. So when you're looking at the types of responses that you would expect, disruption of intracellular communication leads to things like attention deficit, not being able to focus, sleep disruption, behavioral problems, all of those things. So if you want to do a quick sample, take a look at the records of those things in your schools and compare those that have Wi-Fi and those that do not, those with mass and those that do not, because the mechanism suggests that those are the kinds of things that you can see. Okay. You don't have to convince me. I believe. And that's why here in the UK, you need a clinical intervention program. You need a post-market surveillance registry and a clinical intervention program so that people like you can be taken care of with your doctors while other folks are trying to do the research that crosses the T's and dots the I's. You can't wait for them.
Sorry about it, just to add, I'm suffering and I could be
you know, sometimes I can cope with pain, but I feel for my 4-year-old daughter. We moved when my daughter was 1 year old. She came with rash, her arms bleeding with rash. The doctor couldn't take away the rash. We had to go away to cottages to, you know, spend money to be away of the house. Then she started hearing a sound. Listen to all of you. The mouse, all of these masks, they cause a sound, a pulsing sound. It was like a bee was in her ears. She said, Mommy says, in her coat, she couldn't sleep. She woke up about up to 15 times a night saying, Dr. Charles, I'm telling you, please to help us. Because she said, Mom, there is the wind in my ears. There is a plane in my coat. Please, Mom, take it away. I have to put a radio on the thing. I'm sorry I'm emotional, but what do I do with my daughter? She's covered in rash. When I take her to Peru, to South America, her body clears. The doctor has checked it. Her doctor says, I can't help you. There is no guidelines in the NHS. He says, we can't help you. Go back to the Hair Protection Agency. Hair Protection Agency says, go back to your doctor. Where do I go now? I've been Hair Protection Agency, doctor, Sweden. Professor Hall says it's very easy to prove that your daughter suffers from electromagnetic radiation because a simple test that costs 2,000 pounds, it will prove it. He says, I'll do it for you, but he says you have to go to the government, and I'll do it when the government, you know, to be validated by the government. Please help me. Please help me. I'm in pain.
I'll talk to you about the rash. Okay. And then the one behind in yellow, the freelance.
I answered you together, is that okay?
Okay. And then there's a thing over this side. I'll come back to this.
Okay, the settlement. You know, I didn't do anything that was culpable in that situation. The industry was standing behind me with their defense. They said, see, we gave money to this guy, and he did the research, and he's out there blabbing about it. And that's why the plaintiffs wanted to settle. And I felt that simply giving the plaintiffs money without doing something constructive for everybody else was not a good way to go. And that's why we asked for the money to set up the registry. The question about the 3G. One thing that we're doing in communities in the United States now, that we're working with those homeowners to put in fiber optic bypasses so that, you know, it goes back to a common law theory of criminal trespass. If the radio wave is something dangerous and you don't want it on your property, then, at least in the United States, you can bring criminal trespass actions against the heads of the companies who have the responsibility. And what's possible is to establish a shield and then a fiber optic bypass around your property so that you do not have to have those radio signals in your property. If a whole street of homeowners works together in the same manner, now you have a fiber optic bypass around the whole community, and before you know it, you can tie that into the fiber optic infrastructure you already have in place, and before you know it, you have a fiber optic spine, and then you're able to have a distributed antenna system with noise field protection at the nodes. This is a solvable problem. It is not necessary for people to be sick from this technology.
I'm very, very interested, Carlo, on the technology. I'd be very pleased to hear how one gets it. From any lawyers present, where the notion of criminal trespass is
Quickly, then I'm going to really follow some questions.
I want to answer the question. There's litigation ongoing in the United States now. There are 7 different class action lawsuits that have been brought. There are 7 different personal injury lawsuits that have been brought. And the basis for those lawsuits is that the industry knew and they lied about it. Evidence in those lawsuits show that while on the one hand the industry is filing for a patent that says we need a shield inside the phone because these radio waves are dangerous, and at the same time, during the same year, in the phone user's manual, when you buy a new phone, it says there are no studies that indicate that cell phones are dangerous. Now, I want to raise one other point. And again, this highlights the difference between research and clinical intervention. Research and intervention. There are a number of published epidemiological studies out there, as Dr. Chalice has pointed out. from a research point of view, Dr. Chalice and others look at that and they parse the data and they say, well, it was only marginally statistically significant there, and that's what researchers are supposed to do. It's what they do for a living. When we look at those studies from an intervention point of view, we know that in those published epidemiological studies, there are more than 300 statistically significant increases reported between cancer and benign tumors and cell phone use. There are more than 300 findings reported in those studies. I know you're shaking your head. Sheila, you're shaking your head. No, the answer is yes. You will count them. Now, from a surveillance point of view, we look at that and we say that means we need intervention.
Okay, let's have 3 last questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it.